Wargaming has made quite a few ugly vehicles in the past. I mean, heck, just some of the Halloween tanks they've put into the game, like the Annihilator, are not the prettiest sights to look at. But I don't think any of them get even close to this, the Forest Witch. Literally the ugliest thing I have ever seen. In today's video, I will be talking about the released statistics of this tank, as a lot of you probably want to know if it's going to be an overpowered Halloween tank and you should save up to get it, or if it's going to be a wash like last year's. Last year's tank wasn't bad, but the Pharaoh definitely wasn't anything amazing compared to the Smasher or Annihilator. So let's get straight into it. We're going to start off with its gun, we'll talk about the speed, I'll break into the armor, and yeah, I guess we'll just see if this tank's anything impressive. So the vehicle's gun is an auto reloader, and it's a 4-shell auto reloader. We can see that shell 4 takes 5.43 seconds to load, and it has an intra-clip of 2.61 seconds. So that's actually around, what, 7-8 seconds to shoot your first shot, and it's going to deal 240 damage. Now, I'm not a rocket scientist, but 8 seconds for 240 damage does not sound like a lot of damage per minute, and that's the most effective DPM you can have in this vehicle. So if we do 60 divided by 8, and then we multiply that by the 240, yeah, I mean, it's not bad DPM, but I should put into your mind that vehicles like the Tiger 1 have 2,500 DPM. So I mean, tier 7 heavies have a lot of DPM. The Black Prince has 3k. Even the Annihilator and Smasher are upwards of 24 to 2,500. So while the DPM's not bad, it's not good at all. That's very mediocre DPM. And again, that's the most effective it's going to be. Shell 3 is going to lose you about 200 DPM. Shell 2 is going to lose you an additional 200 DPM. And then Shell 1, 18-second reload. Essentially, just don't shoot your last shell. I'm honestly very surprised to see Wargaming releasing yet again another reserve shell auto reloader. The Minnow and Caro 45-ton both feature reserve shells, and I've broken into in the past on how this type of balancing is really bad for the game for two reasons. First of all, let's say you have a Minnow on your team, and the player doesn't understand how to play the game. So he dumps all 3 of his shells, and now he's essentially useless, so if you ever need support, that player is out of the game. And then they shoot on reload of their reserve shell. No, I can't tell you how many times I've watched after I've died, or just something's happened, and you just stare at this Minnow player, or whatever, a Caro player, dump their full clip, and now they're literally useless the rest of the game. But it gets even worse. How many times have you tried pushing an enemy Minnow? You see, okay, this guy, he's probably not going to full dump me, so I'm going to try and shoot him once or twice, and then he just dumps the full clip, and it ruins your game because the thing does 1,500 damage. Either way, the reserve shell mechanic is really poorly bounced. I think that it just shouldn't exist. If you want to give vehicles reserve shells, just make it a more balanced 3-shell auto reloader. That's kind of how I think about this vehicle as well. So, for the majority of players that don't know how to play this game, they're going to buy this tank thinking it's overpowered, they're going to dump a full clip into you for 1,000 damage, ruin your fun, and in the process, kill their fun because they're not going to have any more shells. So, yeah, it's going to take you around 40 seconds to reload the entire clip in this tank. That's insane. So, with the gun aside, let's take a look at the other stats. We got penetration, 190 on the standard. Now, this is with calibrated shells. Obviously, it's not a loader. So, 190 on the standard, 252 on the premium. The premium pen's actually pretty nice, so you're not going to have to worry really about cutting through any opponents there. Average damage, 240 on the standard, 210 on the premium, and actually very nice HE damage of 320, although the penetration's pretty mediocre at only 50 mils. But if you do get the opportunity to get high explosive shells out, wow, you can get some pretty nasty clips. Dispersion is actually not too bad at 0.344, but gun compression, 6 degrees, that's pretty poor. I'm not gonna lie, 6 degrees is gonna make it very hard to maneuver and work, especially because this tank is literally the size of a skyscraper. So now we move over to the mobility. The tank has a top speed of 36 and a reverse of 15. That's actually not too bad. It's got an average speed of 28 and an effective power to weight of 14.6. Power to weight of 14 is not anything amazing, but it's okay. The vehicle will accelerate decently. It's not the fastest, though, obviously, so not too much of anything important there. It weighs a lot, so it might be decent at ramming. It weighs 50 tons. Its turn is very slow at 21 degrees a second, and the hull traverse is actually pretty fast at 40 degrees a second, so it's got a lot of yin and yang on the vehicle's overall mobility. What I will say is that it seems like it'll just be fairly average for a heavy tank on the overall mobility aspect. What is pretty cool is it does have the reserve track mechanic. I can move my face a little bit. You can see that it's going to reverse at 4 kilometers per hour, which is pretty cool. I'm not sure if they're going to change it to 7 now that we've seen the M6 Yo and Concept 1B get the reserve track, but still it'll be very, very solid to have a reserve track mechanic. Being able to back into cover after being tracked is going to be super strong. The armor of the Forest Witch is some of the weirdest I've legit ever seen in the game. It's a lot stronger in certain spots than you would expect, but a lot weaker in others. For example, the gun, if you just shoot there, is about 180 mils thick. Even if you shoot the gun itself, is only about 207. So the majority of tier 7s that have APCR as premium, or just don't hit the gun, will penetrate anywhere on the actual little flat spot where the gun is mounted. You can see a better angle of it here. I mean, what an ugly design of this vehicle. So that's the first weak spot the tank has. The second weak spot is the edges of the turret are only about 160 on both sides. Because of this, you can also penetrate the edges at almost any angle. So yeah, again, very weird balancing for this tank. But to make the edges weak, Wargaming has decided they're going to make the center very strong. Even against premium rounds, I mean, this is 240 millimeters plus a premium because it has Cali as well, aiming at the Forest Witch. And as we can see, the upper part of the turret's very solid, but the lower part is incredibly easy to pen at only 240. And now this entire angled bit becomes an easy pen when hull down, as we can see, only about 200 millimeters. This one is actually quite a bit stronger for some reason. I'm not sure why, but it's quite a bit stronger, but still, what a weird armor profile. It's not necessarily good. I mean, we can get out a worse pen medium. Let's go to like a VK3002D. This is one of the worst penning mediums in the game. And it's still a pretty easy pen just to shoot the gun on the vehicle or to overmatch the little edges. And I mean, this tank only has about 200 mils of premium pen. You can also shoot the lower plate, but it's a very tricky lower plate to shoot. The armor is actually very solid, but it's nothing amazing because what's going to happen is you're going to roll up against a tier 8. And the average tier 8 heavy, like a Tiger 2, I mean, it's not going to take crap. This is what a Tiger 2 sees. So yeah, the armor, it's strong against lower tiers, but it's not going to mean anything against higher tiers. An Annihilator is obviously going to be much better on armor against this vehicle. So that's kind of how I see this tank. I mean, this is what an Annihilator's armor looks like, and look at how troll this is. Even premium shells from a Tiger 2, there are a lot of troll spots where you will bounce this vehicle's turret, and against standard, I mean, that is really troll. So personally, I think that at the end of the day, the vehicle is going to be decent, especially against lower tiers, but I don't know, the vehicle looks pretty dang useless overall. The side armor is actually pretty strong, I will say that, like even angled pretty steeply, it's pretty dang strong, but the massive size of this vehicle paired with the terrible gun depression, and the side armor's awful. It's 100 mils. The side of the turret is only 80, meaning that HE shells from 150 millimeters are actually going to be able to cut through you. Same for the rear. It's only 80 mils on the back, and the hull is only 72. So it's got a lot of weak spots, and I think that's good. And the vehicle itself doesn't seem like it's anything impressive either on the gun. So yeah, at the end of the day, I can't really say there's much special about this tank. It will be cool, but that's about as much as I can say. What can I say about the Forest Witch? Well, it seems like a fairly well-balanced heavy, which is actually good. There's so many people that are probably going to complain, oh, this tank doesn't seem as good as the Annihilator or the Smasher, and good! There shouldn't be tanks that are broken. Wargaming should release balanced tanks into the game that are fun and unique. And this vehicle definitely looks like it's unique. We're gonna have to see how fun it is once it gets released. But hopefully you enjoyed today's video. And as usual, if you'd like to see more like it and news up to date with the game, make sure to click that subscribe button down below. I'll see you all in the next one. Bye-bye.